Yo, was running late with Cab. You already know what time it is. You know what I'm saying? The kid, always late, but
Hold on, watch your mouth.
Yeah.
Make sure we can see your face on the camera.
so I'm looking this way.
You can get yourself comfortable. There you go. Ready?
Yeah. All right. How does it work? You just go.
What? How does it work? We just fired up. Cab Washington, good to see
Yo,
you.
Ted Jones.
Let's go, buddy.
Yo, wasted no time,
Guys,
bro.
Cab's a great guy, man. I see him hanging out. You're a good hanger, I'd say.
Yo, thanks, man.
You know,
I
we
learned
also
that
a great
in LA.
comic, obviously, but you know, the hang is something that people are not great at sometimes.
Yeah, I don't get. Do you have like? Have you had a experience recently where you're like, yo, this person's always hanging, but it's the worst hang?
No.
Okay.
Interesting. Well, there was actually at the stand the other night. I've seen this one particular kid like at least 4 or 5 times, and then finally I was like, "Yo, what's up, dude? I'm Ted. Like, nice to meet you." He's like, "Oh, what's up? I'm this guy." By the way.
Yeah.
I just find like if you're gonna hang, I feel like you got to be good at the intros and shit.
Right,
And
right.
like the first time I've ever really barked on the street was the Saturday before we had the 3rd annual TEDJONESWORLD vegan hot dog eating contest on Sunday.
Yeah.
And barking, man, is a hell of a beast. So anybody who's barking like on a consistent basis, basically, for those of you who don't know, barking before a comedy
Yeah,
show.
yeah, you're not just going.
Yeah, try and bringing people into the show. Making people feel more comfortable about coming into the comedy club, whatever it is. But I think just in general, like barking and networking are really good ways to just loosen you up. It's like also like a form of improv on stage.
Right.
As you know, like if you're, not feeling maybe you're set, you kind of transfer gears and you're doing crowd work and stuff like that. But I think in general, all sorts of talking and networking and barking is good for comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I started in journalism. So in journalism, that's like my background, and so it's a lot of interviewing, it's a lot of interaction, a lot of question asking. But a huge part of journalism is relationships. Like every job I ever got, I'm a producer on a show right now called First Things First. Like every job I got up leading to
Fox
this
Sports, right?
Fox Sports was all through the friendship, the love, like people. What I learned early on in comedy is like people would rather be on tour with you for like mad days than you like slaughter every night. You know what I'm saying? Like definitely do your job, be funny on stage, but if you're the worst to like be around, locked, in Des Moines, Iowa, and you're the worst to be around, then it's like, damn, I'd rather you be like really, really funny, at least early on,
Where'd you go to college?
I went to LaSalle.
Is that
In
Pennsylvania?
Philly, yeah.
Okay. So a good amount of my family actually moved or grew up in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay.
And then like almost all of them, they went to college in the Philly area, and then they all moved to Philly.
Oh, shit.
So I've spent a lot of time in Philly. My dad went to college in Philly.
Which one?
He went to Wharton.
Okay.
University of
Penn.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
business school. And I've known people who've gone to UPenn. My cousins went to UPenn. So I've spent a lot of time in the city of brotherly love, and
Dude,
I love it, man.
all love.
I've never done comedy down there, but I look forward to it and potentially doing it. Start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? How'd you get into comedy? And then how'd you get this great job that you have right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in the slums, the gutter, you know what I'm saying? Philly.
North Philly?
No.
Meek
Actually,
Mill?
quite the opposite. Downtown, if you're familiar,
A little bit. Only just from like Meek Mill's raps and Geno's and Pat's, and just
Yeah.
like that's as far as I know really about Philly. And
But all your family's there. No, I grew.
I know I should know more, dude. I should know more.
My man said Wharton. I was like, you mean Penn, right? But no, I grew up in Philly, downtown Philly. My dad owned a restaurant. I also worked in a restaurant growing up as a kid, like since I was 7.
So your dad's restaurant?
Yeah, he owned a soul
Just
food
like
joint.
busboy and stuff
was
like
cashier.
that. Oh, dope.
So I was 7 years old. Saturday night packed out. Everyone's hungry. Everyone's
And
frustrated.
wasted.
And you're just like, hey, oh my God, welcome to Ron's Ribs. Like, what can I get for you? Like,
Nice. That's a good like early taste of networking too. Anyway, continue.
exactly, man. So worked for my dad. He passed away when I was 11, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear that.
We ended up closing the restaurant for a little bit and then opening it back up. My uncle ended up running it, but I moved in with my mom. And my parents are separated, and so there's a lot of trauma associated with that. Parents separating, working at a very young age, and the dad passing away. So it was a lot of emotional neglect, just me sitting in my thoughts. But I always really love the opportunity to engage and interact. And one of my biggest, earliest influences actually was Stephen A. Smith. Crazy, right?
I love him.
Stephen A. I'm talking Market 30 Stephen A. when he was just a columnist in Philly.
What's Market 30?
Like it's like a journalism term. If like market, so does like every city has a market. So like LA and New York, I think New York's number 1, LA's number 2. Market 30 would be like Jersey City. You know what I mean? So it's a media hub, but it's not like a top 10 market. Like if you're a journalist, you want to get to a top 10 market.
Like in Chicago, maybe at the
top 5.
Right. Okay.
Let's see, Chicago, San Francisco, Philly, the top 10 market, Miami, things like that. But yeah, I got into journalism because of Stephen A. Smith. He was black. He was funny. He was talking about my man Iverson. I was a big sports fan.
What was that show called?
What's that? Quite frankly.
Yeah. Quite frankly. Yeah. That's all you need. I freaking love that, dude.
Was that the right
dude. That's the exact phrase you said. Quite frankly, that's all you need.
Yeah.
I know him and AI were boys.
Yeah.
And he credits AI for like a ton of his success initially. I, by the way, was a journalism major at UConn.
Oh shit.
So I had my own show at UCTV.
What?
Bro, I played tennis there, and I was really focused on being on the tennis team for the first 2.5 years, and then the last year and a half was like a shift. I ended up writing a movie script about Ryan Leaf, who I'm sure you know about.
Ryan Leaf, dog.
Yeah.
Dog. Fucking Chargers legend.
Yes, dude. Amazing. Not a lot of people know about that. But I don't want to interrupt you. Keep going. Keep going about the Stephen A. Smith. Looking up to Stephen A. Smith. Keep going about that.
Yeah. So it was just like, yo, he was black and he was funny, you know, but he was extremely educated, well spoken. Like he used words that you would never think. You're just like, what? The panoply. You're like, how the fuck do you?
Winston-Salem State, right?
Yeah, Winston-Salem State. North Carolina guy, played ball there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Also growing up in Philly, you're either a rapper or a hooper. So I played basketball, so I was always into sports growing up. But yeah, I wanted to be Stephen A. Then I got to college, went to LaSalle, went to the same school my dad went to the same school my brother went to. Really intimate college experience, like 2,000 undergrads. I was editor of my newspaper, or editor of sports section editor, interviewing all the big names, made it to the Sweet 16. Shout out to LaSalle basketball.
Oh, dude, while you were at school?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, we won the national we won the national championship at UConn.
Dude, fuck you guys. You guys won it. I don't even know if we can curse in here.
And I was there when the women had that 90-game winning streak. It was like
who was
Steph
on that team? Was that Ruth? No, that was
the women?
The Maya Moore?
Maya Moore was my freshman year, and then Steph Dolson carried it. Caroline Doty. There were a lot of women on that throughout those 4 years that were insane and went on to be great WNBA players. And then we had Kemba Walker my freshman year. Shabazz Napier.
Were you there?
Yes. Dude, we were all around the TV. Puerto Rico spring break tennis trip. All of us were around the freaking TV, the Big East tournament. Kemba's freaking dribbling, does the one step. And then on the pit guy who's like freaking bugging out. He freaking falls back and Kemba. We were all freaking bugging, dude. Dude, that trip I had 24 Krispy Kreme donuts. I was like, it was terrible. In one sitting. They were like, you can't do it, Ted Jones. I was like, all right, watch me. Pounded 24 and then barfed as soon as I went to the bathroom. Projectile.
What was the point?
But it was fresh. Just because I was talking a lot of shit as a freshman.
Okay.
We passed by Krispy Kreme donuts. We were all getting donuts, dude. And I was like, I can house like 24 of those. And everyone was like, bet. So like half the team was on my side. Half the team thought I was going to throw up. And I held it down until I went to the bathroom at the end of 24 and just projectiled. I don't know if I've ever told you guys that, but it's crazy team bonding experience.
So wait, was that... Did you get, you wouldn't have bet though, right? Did people find out?
No, I had to hold it down for 30 minutes after.
Damn.
So I held it down for 2 or 3 minutes. I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta sit down. I was gonna potentially drop a deuce. As soon as I leaned over, just projectile. It was crazy, bro.
Bro, I'm glad you're still alive, bro. You could have got diabetes.
I know, dude.
Right after that.
Man, I was freaking thin as shit. And then since that point, I've not had a Krispy Kreme donut. I'm also vegan, but still, dude. Vegan. I cannot even look at one anytime after that.
Dude, you're missing out, man. I haven't had one in a minute, though. But
well, when you got your vaccine shots, you could have gotten those, which is crazy. I don't know.
Mean?
There was a deal in New York where if you got your vaccine shot, you get 2 free Krispy Kreme donuts, which is like, bro, if you're getting a vaccine, I don't think you should be eating the worst thing possible for you, you know?
I think there was a lot of things we shouldn't have been doing when we got the vaccine.
That's true, man. But you grew up in LA, no? You were telling me briefly last
So here's the thing. So I had a circuitous past. So after I graduated, I was in Philly. I was like, yo, I need to get out of the city, start fresh or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Where'd you go to high school, by the way?
Went to Bishop McDevitt in Wyncote.
Okay, is that near the
Catholic
city?
League. So do you know Cheltenham High School?
My mom
went to... Dickey went to Cheltenham because...
Okay, my mom went to Harriton High School next to Lower Merion.
We played them in high school. And Bishop McDevitt, we played them in a Springfield basketball tournament. I'm trying to think... Nah, not really any NBA guys. So that was like the competitor to Lower Merion. But Yeah, I graduated and I was like, yo, big fish, small pond in Philly. Been here my whole life. Let me go spread my wings. I should have moved to New York because that would have been the smart idea. That would have been the smart decision journalistically. But
After
I
LaSalle?
hated New York. Yeah, hated it. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because have you been? Dog, spend more time in Philly, and you'll be like, yo, this is literally just New York's just a bigger, more like industrialized Philly. Like, so it just reminded me too much of home, so I wanted to like go as further away from that as possible.
Interesting. Right. I can see the definite similarities between New York and Philly, especially when like you grow up in Philly and then you kind of go to New York. You're like, all right, well, it seems similar. Like this area of New York reminds me of this area in Philly, and you can tell that with like the streets full of bars, restaurants, and stuff like that, college life.
Yep.
And so forth.
Mad fast, walking everywhere and shit. Yeah. Like 100 different schools. There's mad schools in New York. There's mad schools in Philly. Yeah. So it was just like, I need to do something like completely different, like shock my system completely. So I got a job working in student affairs actually at UCLA, and then was freelancing doing journalism on the side. And then from there, I was meeting mad people in LA. Like my first like couple weeks, I met Issa Rae. Like, she was best friends.
ESPN.
No, bro, you're racist, dog. No.
Is she a rapper?
Is she a rapper?
Is she?
Oh, you're talking
Issa
about
Rae.
the entrepreneur. No, Issa Rae, Insecure. She produced one of the best shows on HBO called Insecure. She's look her. I think you're thinking of Josina Anderson.
Maybe.
Yeah, but no, she came out with the show called Insecure on HBO. I made it to like 5-6 seasons. She's like a really well-known black creative, but one of the best in the game right now. So I met her like my first couple weeks at the job. And then from there, it was like I was thinking about getting into entertainment, but like growing up in Philly and being around, you know, I grew up like middle class, but lower middle class. So even though we had a restaurant, but my parents would always be like, you know, get a job, like be realistic, things like that. So it was always like I could never get into entertainment, I could never get into comedy, I could never get into acting. But then, you know, I did 3 years at UCLA, and then I kind of lost my contract, and then I just started doing comedy. And then so I started comedy in LA, grew up in Philly, started comedy in LA, and then from LA it was like I was getting really good really fast, and I was working at a comedy club, so I was getting mad spots and doing big shows. But I knew like if I wanted to get really like crystal, like really sharp as hell, that I had to move to New York. Just more stage time.
How often were you doing comedy in LA when you first started?
When I first started, so I was still doing improv and sketch, right?
That's how I really got into comedy. If you see over there on the refrigerator, we have the Herald right there from
Oh,
the UCB
what?
class. Yeah, dude. That's
Bro.
like I was really involved at UCB, and then
New York?
March 2020 hit. I was supposed to try out for a Lloyd team.
What were you doing? Oh, for a
and then
Herald
that
team.
was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Damn. Did you
Yeah.
finish? Did you finish 301?
So I finished 401.
401, right?
And right at that, like a week and a half later, I was supposed to try out for a Lloyd team. Then
Dude, you
everything
would've
shut
made
down,
it, bro.
Well, and then at that point, I was like,
Was that your first audition?
no, that was my second one.
Okay,
the
okay.
first one I didn't get. The second one was about to potentially get. We'll see. And then at that time, I was also working at my dad's company, so I was kind of thinking about transitioning into entertainment full time, whether it was doing this podcast, which we had already started. It'll be 3 years in August. So at that
that's major,
time,
bro.
yeah.
Congrats.
So at that time, I was still working at my dad's company. I was like, okay, I want to take the full leap. But then once March 2020 hit, I ended up being in my dad's company for another like year and a couple months.
had to,
yeah,
yeah.
just because like there was no real opportunities there, you know.
Right.
Even people were doing Zoom shows and stuff. I don't know if you were doing Zoom shows.
Yeah, I actually didn't hate Zoom shows. Look,
Interesting.
yo.
You're one of the first people who come on here who said you didn't hate it.
Because I mean, coming from an improv background, it's fun to like just experiment and go out and
Different
go. Like
shit.
it's hard to do your hardest material on a Zoom show. Like, so me, I would just like click mad windows and be like, look at you with your nut ass tapestry in the back of your fucking
Love that,
kitchen.
dude.
Like, what do you live by yourself? Like, I would just like go ham. Dog.
What do you live by yourself?
Like,
So you were in L.
yeah,
You were
your
in L.
pandemic was crazy, wasn't it?
You're in LA doing UCB or no?
Yeah, I did. So I started at West Side Comedy Theater. Shout out to West Side Comedy Theater. If you're in LA, check it out. Some of the best shows in all of the city, in Santa Monica, right by the Promenade. So I started there. I was like a stage manager. I was doing tech. I did every position there. Did all the improv classes, did all the sketch classes, did all the stand-up classes. So I started there. But then I tore my Achilles randomly. I was working like 4 jobs. I was working like 2 restaurant jobs. I was freelancing. and I was doing comedy every night. So I was just burnt out. My body was. Tore my Achilles. That's when I just locked into stand-up. I tore my Achilles and I just started writing like crazy.
Were you like bedridden after you tore it though?
Yeah. I was perked up. I was bedridden for like a month. Yeah, I was crazy. Yo. I was playing basketball. And yeah, tore my Achilles in Philly, flew back to LA, got the surgery. And then it was year 2 of like starting comedy where I really like started writing a lot and then going to like strictly stand-up mics and stuff like that. I was still doing a lot of improv, but like sketch was kind of an afterthought. So it was really like stand-up and improv, but like going to shows and doing set mics and doing shows.
Mics in LA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so from there, I then moved to Hollywood. My buddy from college, he moved there, so we went to LaSalle together. He had a dope-ass spot, rooftop, everything in Hollywood, right by UCB Sunset and Franklin. And then so I was doing 301, and then I started doing I was working interning there, and then I was doing stand-up. But like Hollywood is where it's at if you're in LA, to like really be close to the Valley, be close to like Melrose area, because that's where a lot of the mics and shows are. So I kind of went backwards. Like I don't advise necessarily starting comedy in LA, because like excuse me, like I would do a show with like Jamie Kennedy, you know what I'm saying? And so then I'm like, man, I'm Jamie Kennedy, dog. 6 months into comedy, I barely got 8 minutes. Like I'm Jamie Kennedy. Like I was just on the same stage with him. He got the same amount of laughs as me. You know what I mean? Mind you, he's working on like material that he just wrote this morning, whereas me, I'm hitting like my most like heavy hitting and stuff. So, but it's like it disillusions you to think that you're on that level, you know, because you're on the same show with him. Then he's like, yo, come open for me, you know, at Brea Improv, or come open for me at Ontario, whatever. But then when you start going on the road, which I did a lot more when I moved to New York, then you see where you really stand as far as like material, as far as like endurance and things like that. Like I was featuring during the pandemic for this guy Brian Simpson, who's like on a tear right now, Netflix special, booked with Joe Rogan, doing a lot of stuff with Bert Kreischer. You could tell he's been in the comedy like 10 plus years. Like his hour, I watch his hour every time, and I'm just looking at it, watching, just like, oh, this is like endurance. This is having been doing comedy for so long, like because he's just been repetition, pivot, audience throws him curveball, joke doesn't land, tag doesn't land, switch it up. Like it's just that is the repetition that you need to really truly be great. So that's what was in my mind when I was in LA, is like, oh, I need to either get really good really fast, whether that means sticking around here, or go to New York where there's a lot more stages. I can play the East Coast a lot more. It might be tough to reset, which is what I did. I restarted kind of essentially, but I think long term it'll be a better trade off for me.
And how many years ago was that?
I moved to New York 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. Yeah.
Oh wow, right before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I was only supposed to do like 6 months and like get my feet wet and stuff. Bring Running Late here, which is what I did. Yeah, my comedy show. And then the pandemic hit, and then I've kind of been stuck here. But it's been great though. It's been great to be closer to home. I've been producing a lot of great shows, building a lot of material, having a lot of fun with the East Coast.
So how have you felt that the New York comedy scene has been different than the LA comedy scene, in saying that people should start in New York comedy if you really want to do it seriously?
Yeah. So it's weird, man. There's so many ways to attack that conversation, and we have this conversation all the time because it's a big New York versus LA battle. I'll say on the base level, New York comedians are better writers. Like, you learn early on in New York, or like you see comics early on, even if a joke isn't good, their premise is set up and structured with like tag punchline. You know what I mean? Whereas LA, it's like I could go on stage at a mic and be like, yo, it's crazy how like TikTok is wild, and I'll just have a thought out of my mind, almost something that you would tweet, but it would get a crazy laugh. So then you're under this impression that like half-baked thoughts are really funny, whereas here, full-fledged out like ideas and jokes like really stick, because the attention span here is so much shorter with audiences. So it's like you see like a guy like Mark Norman, laughs per minute, like tag.
Totally.
Whereas LA, it's a little bit more like you can get off of your likeness a lot more. You know, I don't think that's bad, but I think it's different, and it depends on how well that can transcend and can you take that to a Milwaukee, or can you take that to a Chicago? Can you take that to a Minneapolis? Can you take it to a Virginia Beach? You know, and I just think that a comic who's come out of who spent more time in New York could get more, can kind of transcend more around the country than someone from LA, because LA it's a very different living experience.
And it's also kind of like, when you think about comedy shows in New York City, you can really go any day, any particular time, really any place. And
more stages.
Yeah, and you'll see at least one comic who was making you laugh the entire show. You know, you go to a free show in Bushwick, and chances are you can see someone who's going to have a Netflix special in 2 or 3 years, something like that. And maybe you wouldn't see that in LA.
So that's the only thing that I think is a little bit of a New York, there's so many more comics, right? So many more stages, but there's also so many more comics fighting for so many spots, right? Whereas LA, I think if you're not the best comedian in the city, you could still really find a lane podcasting, or you could still find a lane in some level of content creation, or you could build a lot of relationships a little bit more easier. Like New York, there's just so many more people. So there's so many more people like trying to get their foot in the door. But I think LA, you can also get into acting early on. Like you can balance acting with comedy. Whereas like a lot of people I see in New York will have been doing stand up for like 10 plus years. And then they'll be like, all right, let me go to LA and get an acting gig. Whereas in LA, you can kind of do background and do principal work and take classes. There's just more of a culture there of being like more of a hyphenate. Whereas here in New York, it's a lot of like, I only do stand up, and then like I'll take an audition, or I'll do a couple shows, or I'll do a couple movie roles or something like that. Whereas LA, it's much more in your career trajectory. It's like I'm acting and I'm doing comedy.
But you're more of a fan of New York now, more so than LA.
Bro, I think it's just different, you know. I love the opportunities to do comedy here, but I miss all the homies, and I do miss the opportunities. Like there's way more stuff being shot every day in LA.
You think so?
Yeah.
Don't you find it to be a little bit slower though?
Yeah, it's slower, but like if you ever are you submitting for stuff right now, or like
not
Casting
really.
Frontier,
Not
or
right
like
now, not right
Backstage?
now.
All that stuff is like casting in LA. Commercials, small shit like Geico, fucking Rent-A-Car, fucking Enterprise. Like it's just random ass shit that you could get NBA TV. Like you can get a lot of just random ass stuff. Like if you go to an LA improv show, you'll be watching like a regular Herald team, like, yo, I seen him at the what's it called commercial. Right, or I seen him at the other, so oh shit, what the fuck? Yeah. Okay, Jeff, I see you, bro. Like so I'll say, but the thing I love about New York is that it has a more regular life experience though. Like you have the day-to-day of like weather and train and shittiness, whereas LA, you kind of get sucked into like this euphoric life that is like not really real.
Do you think that's bad for a creator or somebody trying to make it an entertainment? Like in working for Fox Sports 1, where do you think is the best place for somebody to look for a job like you have right now?
That's a great question. I would say, I mean, we have an office in both. I actually started in the office in LA.
Oh, okay.
But I would say
to be a Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, to be a Stephen A., I would say you probably should you should probably start in New York at like a basic desk job, like a web producing job, and then build enough of a reel. Like, so you're doing packages by yourself. Like what you're doing online right now is lit. You could create a reel and then submit that to a local news station in like a top 30 market, like a Austin or like a Dallas, and then they could probably put you on as like a desk reporter or something.
That was like my thought initially in the latter years of college, like junior and senior year, when I like had my own show. I was wearing a suit, doing news and stuff like that. Not really doing too much man on the street stuff, but looking for opportunities, whether it was in, I guess we're saying like a top 30 market, but just places that weren't even really existent of like a top 30. Like there were opportunities in Des Moines, Iowa, as you'd say, like Kansas and stuff like that. And that was just shit I really did not. It's not what I wanted to do.
Oregon,
man.
You're just like,
it was just not really what I wanted to do, be like a news personality. So coming back to the city, working corporate, working for my dad's real estate company, I got like a total feel of the real estate in New York, which is like a huge market. Like people, when you talk about real estate, you think about huge cities like New York, maybe Los Angeles, Miami, Texas, stuff like that. But just being like on the front lines and kind of figuring out what I didn't really want to do, I think like I think it was good.
Such a pivotal piece of the journey.
Totally, man. It's like
what boxes you've already checked off that like, nah, that's not for me.
And I feel like I don't want to say I've started over so many times, but there have been points in my life where I'm like, yo, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Let's kind of figure out the next one. And at that particular moment, I didn't think like, oh, I'm starting over completely. But like looking back a few months or like looking back a few years, I'd be like, oh, that was the point where I kind of started over, whether it was doing the podcast, the vlog, starting the Ted Jones comedy show. There were just points where I was like, okay, this isn't working. I'm not liking what I'm doing. Let's kind of transfer and do this.
Yeah.
Did you ever find that in terms of like doing your job now or moving from LA to New York when you were like, okay, I want to start over?
I mean, I always have had in mind like the end, right? Which is like big headlining or like doing something where everyone can see me around the country, like having the biggest audience possible and always traveling.
Do you see yourself having like a big sports gig doing something like that, being like Stephen A and looking up to him? Because he has such a big personality.
Yeah, but so at first I wanted to be Stephen A, but then I was my senior year of college, and I just been to all these like journalism and conventions, and like Stephen A sacrifices so much to talk about player one beating player two off the dribble for a basket. Like the roteness of sports is like, it at some point it just seems limiting. Like even just while like I'm a producer on a show, and like we've talked about KD and Kyrie for the past 10 days in a row, dog. Like, but not at one point we can throw in there like a joke about, marriage, or not one point in there can we be really crass or anything like that. So it's limiting in that regard. But here's the thing: is every 10 years there are these transcendent players that are legendary in the league that you talk about again. So it's just a conversation that kind of goes in a loop. So once I realized how much of that is just boring to me, it's like, I'll do the job, I'll make money, I'm really good at it. I've been doing it my whole like adult life. Like I'll do it, like I'll be a producer on a show, but I knew at some point like I'm just gonna work until like I can then have my own creative thing, which will probably be like which is what I'm doing now, which is kind of like hip hop and which is like a music, but like alternative avant-garde comedy experience, which is like an assemblance of music and comedy. So, and then maybe I'll throw sports in it. Like I wouldn't say no to a gig at like Barstool, I wouldn't say no to a gig at the Ringer, but as far as like, do I want to sit at a desk and be like, all right, guys, we're here at Wimbledon. Djokovic is going to try to come out here with a win. Like,
dude, I'm fired up about that match on Sunday, by the way. Anyway,
it's going to be, Curious might come out. It's
insane, bro. I've set my alarm 9 a.m. Sunday. Oh, shit, by the way, it's friggin' Monday. Hopefully you guys didn't miss that match yesterday as we were releasing this, by the way. It's Monday.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys didn't miss that match, Nick Kyrgios versus Djokovic. But yeah, I think like what you're saying, you want to be the guy who's able to talk about basketball, but then also go to the Grammys and, shoot the shit with Future and Drake.
Exactly.
Which isn't really, there's not really a person who does that yet. And it seems like up until this point, people have kind of been very sports specific, whatever it is, music specific, acting specific. There's not really someone who kind of has their own show that's like that incorporates all of it,
Exactly. I mean, there's some Complex has some programming, maybe something like that.
But it's all for the network. You want it to be like the Cab Washington show that covers all those things, right?
Yeah, that's really just a reflection of me and all my interests, which is family, comedy, music, and fucking sports. But that was a pivot, though. That was a pivot because I was doing like, just like I was hitting mics every night, I was hitting like covering stories every night. Like while you were going to frat parties, like I was covering the LaSalle men's basketball team, getting a feature story on from Ramon Galloway. So but I took a lot of that journalism and a lot of that. I was actually supposed to go to grad school at Northwestern in Medill, but because at one point I was like, I don't want to do sports anymore. I want to do urban communities. I want to do investigation. I want to do like Vice type stuff.
Was that journalism school, by the way?
Yeah, J school. That's where like Seth Meyers went. It's where Stephen Colbert. It's where Robin Thede went. But I was just like, I can pay $100,000 to go pretend like I want to do journalism again. Like pretend like all my eggs are in one basket with journalism, or I can just like stay in LA, do comedy, and that's what I did. But yeah, it was journalism all the way until I was just like gun to my head, like metaphorically, is like, nah, let's just rock out with what your gut's telling you. Yeah, couch surfing sucks, but you know, being unhappy sucks too. That's
definitely true. Did you move here with a roommate in mind? Like, were you planning out your New York move, or did it kind of just happen?
Yo, it was one of those things that I had thought about it a lot, but my roommate at the time, she's a director, really, really profound director in New York. We had grown up together, a lot of stage plays, and then a lot of like TV stuff recently. She was like, yo, do you want to live in New York for 6 months? And I was like, yo, let's do it.
When was this though?
This was like
summer of
November
2020?
2019.
Okay.
November 2019. She's like, yo, do you want to move in like next month? And I was like
6 months before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. COVID, we were just getting like, hey, COVID's getting crazy. It's moving around. Don't take flights. And I was like, all right, let me just get on this one last flight to New York real quick.
Like before they close planes.
Yeah, before they close the plane, let me just get on this joke. It'll be a couple months. It'll subside. Then I'll get back on a plane to LA right after that.
2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah, I remember first moving here and fucking just getting booked on mad shows and stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then, like,
how though?
One after, what's that?
How'd you get booked on a lot of shows here?
I had just cold DM'd, and then a lot of New York comics had spent time
in LA,
and yeah, or they had just spent time in LA, and I was like, yo, I just moved here, can I like do a spot, you know? And it was stuff like that. And then like, hey, we gotta cancel a show, and I'm like, all right, cool, well, let me know when you have more avails, you know? But then yeah, the COVID, there wasn't a lot of avails for a lot of time, but I will say it was hard though. It was hard, and it was starting over in New York. The comics here are a little bit more cold. Like LA is a great relationship city. The city is a great relationship city. It's all predicated off of relationships. Like you could post up with your Ted Jones World podcast and interact and interview every big headliner out of the Comedy Store, and then one of them's like, yo, I really fuck with you. Do you want to headline, or do you want to feature for me or host for me in San Jose or in Texas? Can you buy this flight? And that's what a lot of, I think, the beauty of LA is. Or they'll be like, yo, you'd be great for a movie role on, you know, my pilot, and then all of a sudden now you're acting on stuff. So whereas New York, it's a lot more of like, oh, how long you been doing it for, which is dope too. Like LA is fake it till you make it. New York is grind till you come up. Like anybody who's good here has seen it all. Like, so by the time they get on the big stage, it's like, dude, I've been bombing at mics for 5 years.
Why do you think that's different though?
I think just, I want to say just because of the culture of the city, like the fact that it's so saturated and the fact that there's so many people here is just, it's just been a passing down of like a burdenship. It's like, oh, we all went through this hardship, so you can't not go through it.
And also kind of when you talk like that, it seems like that's kind of the attitude in the corporate ladder, right? You think about, you hear these guys who are coming out of a Penn, a UPenn, a Harvard, Princeton, they come to the city. They are first a summer intern after their freshman year at Harvard or after Princeton. They're working 11-hour shifts, you know, making barely minimum wage considering how many hours they're working, sometimes sleeping at the office. And then by the time they're 35 years old, they're making $1 or $2 million a year. And then the trajectory keeps going forward like that. But it seems like in New York, like in the corporate ladder and also comedy, you pay your dues early. You're hitting open mics the first 3 to 5 years you're even doing comedy. Even if you're killing at clubs, you're just stage time, meeting people, stage time, traveling a little bit, headlining, maybe featuring in Buffalo, some shit like that.
Right.
But it kind of, like you were saying initially, your first 6 months in comedy, you were on the same stage as Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah.
Malibu's Most Wanted, one of my favorite fucking movies of all time. Like, dude, I reached out to Jamie. I reached out to Jamie Kennedy for one of the first 3 shows that we had here in New York City, and I was like, holy shit, he responded to my DM. No, he said he was
Jamie's one of the cool, and LA comics are those big names. They're so, a lot of them are so fucking chill,
like a lot of them have responded to me. Like even the first like 3 shows that we had here in New York City, it was like, if you're around, like come do my show, would love to have you. Like people who just wanted to, I don't know, just connect. And it just seems like LA is more of like a connection city, and people will give you opportunities because you're kind of close by and they know what you could potentially do. When New York, like you said, it's like, how many years have you been doing it? How many times have you seen you?
Right.
Or, oh, you're kind of still new in comedy. Like, what? I've been doing comedy for fucking 5 years. I'm not still new.
Right,
like,
right.
Oh, well, you're new in this particular circle of comedy.
200%. And like I said, I don't want it to like like I'm not here to like tell a comic how to go about their career, you know, but that's just what
You experienced it.
Yeah, exactly. What I've observed. And I think like I liken it to this is like go to an environment that can best complement how your success looks. So that means being in New York and you think it's a better outside life experience. You're getting a balance of like hangouts with friends. You're getting a balance of like lived experiences. You're also getting a balance of being able to get on stage. Then do that. You know, if you feel like you're getting that in LA, you're getting a balance of all those things that go into like being a good creative, which is a balance of life and like hitting things hard. Then do that. If that means going to Austin, which is also another hub right now. Chicago, which is a very slept on city. Some of the best in the game: Will Miles, Clark Jones, fucking T Murph, Chris Redd, Josh Johnson, who's from who's killing it out here. Of Chicago has one of the best scenes, and a lot of the people out there can go pound for pound with anyone around the country. The Bay also a lot of great concerts. Shout out to my guy Andrew Rolfo, Joey Avery, Mark Smalls, Daoud. They all came out of the Bay, and they're in LA now eating. You know what I mean? So it's like go to an environment that you think best complements how you can be successful. And I think for me right now it's New York. It's close to home. But I don't know what that'll look like in the next 6 months to a year. But I'm having fun while I'm here right now.
And you thought initially LA was going to be that for you. You thought you were going to end up in LA. Like when does the thought of New York come into your head?
I think ultimately I will end up in LA just because I have a lot of family. I have a lot of friends, close relationships.
Okay.
And I love the sunshine, dog. It gets cold out here, and I just get depressed, dog. Like anybody else. But it's just like I want that mansion. I want that thing in the hills. I like the seclusion. I like the views. I like to be able to. I love the West Coast, you know. But I like the ego a little bit of New York. Like New York it's everything earned and it humbles you, and that's something that I've enjoyed more recently. Is like I gotta do this one bringer show that's gonna open me up to getting 10 spots a week, or I gotta bark or whatever. I mean, I haven't done it yet, but like I gotta show a lot of it. I gotta be in all these different scenes like so much all the time, and I can't be mad because the person who's in front of me has been doing this for 11 years and he's just getting on in this city. So it's made me respect and find a new like connection with the art that is just like, oh, like, cause you can get off with kind of cheating, you can get off with like, I'm gonna wait to write tomorrow, or I'm gonna wait to fucking to do this thing the next day. But no, New York holds you accountable for like, nah, bro, each and every day. Cause if someone who's been doing comedy for 20 years that you'll see at New York Comedy Club, who'll have like one avail, and he'll show up get on stage, and you're like, who the fuck is Johnny Smolmani from Staten Island? And he'll rip, and you're like, oh yeah, dog, he came up with fucking, with Louis C.K. back in the day. And you're just like, what? So that's the part about New York that I really been fucking with. Yeah.
Do you ever think you'll open up a restaurant?
I think, yeah, definitely. I think once it all pops off, I'm definitely gonna open up a Ron's. After I have I'm working on a Ron's pilot about owning my dad's restaurant. So once I open up the pilot, once I get the big NBC deal, then I'm gonna open up the restaurant. And then I'm probably gonna have a house in Philly and then a house in LA. Come to New York when I'm working out, hours. But
so my grandma's in Gladwin, so Conshohocken, rather.
Gladwin.
Yeah, dude. So I might be going down there like a couple
ever.
Oh yeah?
Don't ever. That's like when you're.
I used to go to King of Prussia Mall, Toys R Us. Anytime. I guess it was probably like 2K came out, or Madden came out. I'd go there. My grandma would get it for me, dude. That was amazing times. Yeah, dude. I remember that.
One of the best malls in the country.
Yeah, one of the biggest too, right? Mm-hmm. You ever go to the King? You've been there, obviously, many times.
Yeah, that was the.
Did you hang out there as a kid with your friends, like in the mall?
Bro, you'd cop a lay. You'd go to the mall, cop a lay, right?
What's that?
Like a outfit, a layout. You know?
A lay.
You cop a layout.
Yeah.
You go back to your homie's crib. You put the fit on. Then you go back to the mall where. Try to play like, oh, there go to John from so and so.
Was this like before the first day of school?
No,
or this is just like anytime.
This is any weekend. any weekend you cop a fit, you go to the mall, you post up because you're not drinking yet. You know, you're like 16. Is that the mall was where you met girls? You know.
I feel like growing up in...
Go to Willow Grove a lot, too. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've heard of that. I feel like growing up in a city, maybe like Philadelphia, caused you to grow up a little bit faster, where you feel pretty independent there.
Yeah, 100%. So my dad passed away when I was young, and then my mom, you know, was busy, you know, just providing for me and my brother, and then she also had a boyfriend, so she was out of town all the time. Like, she would leave like $20 for the weekend, and then I would just be like, yo, my buddy Rance, he's one of my buddies from high school. We just be like, yo, you trying to go to Willow Grove? And he'd be like, all right, bet I'm gonna pick you up. Or my dad's gonna pick you up in Germantown, and then we're gonna go to the mall and stuff. So I was like, I didn't raise myself like I had, you know, I never wanted for a lot, but I was alone a lot, you know. Kevin also has a funny joke about that, where it's like Home Alone, or it's like Black Home Alone is just like home.
It's not anything specific.
It's not it's just
not anything special. It's
when you home and you're black, it's just always alone.
So what do you look forward to this summer, man? And then coming into the fall, do you have anything exciting coming up that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, bro. So we just brought Running Late back to Brooklyn. It was a show that was really crushing it during the pandemic. We were doing it weekly, but I was so burnt out from producing that during the pandemic. So I shut it down, and I took it to my hometown of Philly. And been doing it for a year there, but now I just got a spot back in Brooklyn. So I'm excited to produce a show in Philly and a show in New York every month, and just stay on the road, man. I want to produce I'm going to do a Running Late in LA in August, and then hopefully do Milwaukee, a couple more cities. And, I'm really excited about that. Running Late it's like been my child since after tearing my Achilles, and then starting to do shows and stuff like that. Like 6 months into comedy, I started producing that show, and then I was in LA, and then brought it to New York. So it's like my child, and I'm excited to see it grow over the summer.
How much time are you comfortable doing on stage now?
So I featured for Brian Simpson, and I'm good with 20. I can do more always, but like if I've done more. I've done half hours, but it's like how much am I stretching? Is it tight? You know, how much crowd work am I incorporating into it? But I get caught into doing a lot of crowd work, and I can really, like, a lot of New York comics hate that. But I love to be in the moment. I love to add more with that. But as far as like, it depends, man. I'd say 20 consistently with jokes, but then crowd work, we can go to the moon.
So what do you see going forward with Fox Sports?
With Fox Sports,
yeah,
we're actually moving. I'll say that news, but I'm excited about the show. It's super lit. There's some new things coming down the pipe with that. You
ever see Andy Roddick? Is he still working at Fox Sports 1 for the tennis?
He might.
He might, initially.
But I think he's in the LA office.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a dope gig, man. I love working with Nick Wright. I don't know if you're a fan or
I big time basketball announcer, not announcer, but like analyst rather. I remember him and Stephen A. Smith were on it. Or what was the show that he was on?
Chris Carter.
Yes. Okay. Chris Carter was a receiver for the Vikings football.
Yes, and the Eagles.
Come on, dog.
The
Eagles, bro.
You got all these Philly ties, bro. You gotta know everything about.
I don't know shit. Wait, when was he on the
Gladwin?
When was he on the Eagles?
He was on the Eagles before, so he was cracked out on the Eagles out. He was on the Eagles before he was on the Vikings. He was on the Eagles, had a lot of bad drug issues, personal issues, and then moved to Minnesota, kind of refound his life. But he was putting up numbers with Randall Cunningham, yeah.
Randall Cunningham. I remember him. And the Vikings number 7.
Yeah, dog. The original running quarterback, yeah. But yeah, he was lit. But Nick's like taking this shit to the next level. And working with guys like that, like Nick wakes up 1 hour sleep, watch the Lakers game, comes and brings that work every morning. Yo, we gotta do this. We gotta do this differently. We gotta switch topics to this. Like, but always bring his A game. So being around that is also like made me, you know, respect like whatever you're doing, do it to the fullest, and know that it's gonna come with a lot of sacrifices.
Where's the office?
It's at Rockefeller. So right at
30 Rock.
Yeah. So right at the big Fox News building. We record out of there.
Nice, man.
Yeah, Kevin Wilde's Krispy, a guy I grew up watching a lot. So it's a dream job, but you know, there's more dreams that I have that I'm excited to pursue, man.
Love it.
Yeah,
Cab,
bro.
man, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me,
Cab,
bro.
shout it down the
This
lens,
was great,
man.
bro.
Plug yourself, plug the comedy show that you're hosting.
Yo.
And check this guy out.
Running Late Comedy Show, dog, the illest comedy show in the universe. We're in Brooklyn. Actually, we're in Brooklyn July 15th, Friday. Pull up. It's going to be lit. We got Reggie Conquest, Derek Gaines, JJ Matisse, Jonas Janot, and me hosting at Friends and Lovers. Follow Running Late Comedy Show, No G, Running Late Comedy Show on Instagram. And support my guy, Ted Jones here, bro. This is my fucking bro, man. He's doing this thing. He's out here, bro. He's a killer.
Cab Washington, thanks so much. Cab also on the show, by the way, guys, next Monday, July 19th.
Oh,
so
yeah.
this Friday, check out Running Late Comedy Show in Brooklyn, July 15th. Check the link in your bio.
Yeah, check the link in my bio. Oh, sorry. Follow me on Instagram also, Cab_Washington. Yeah. were you see it? You see it? Okay.
Cab Washington, you're the freaking man.
Yo,
thanks so much.
thanks,
and
bro.
we'll see you guys next time. Peace.